Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Unique Perspective Show. On today's show, I am thrilled and honored to announce that we have the great Yossi Rotberg on the show. Yossi grew up in Lakewood, New Jersey, went to many yeshivas in Lakewood, but he's a very unique individual. Yossi has something called cerebral palsy, which affects most of the bones in the body. Anyway, Yossi, Baruch Hashem, he's married, he works, and he has 3 kids, Kanai Nahara. But he is also very athletic and unbelievable. He does bike for chai and all that stuff. Today's show is sponsored by Paraflight EMS. For all your airline or organ flights or private charter, please contact info@paraflight.aero. That is info@paraflight.aero or online at paraflight.aero. That is paraflight.aero. As well as it's also being sponsored by Schnitzel Builders. Schnitzel Builders is a construction company based out of Passaic, New Jersey. They do full remodels, gut jobs from the ground up, and they are there for you all the time. For more information, please visit schnitzelbuilders.com or email them at schnitzelbuilders@gmail.com. That is schnitzelbuilders@gmail.com. And please help me in welcoming Yossi Rotberg to the show. Welcome back to the Unique Perspective Show. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you, Yuda?
I'm good, wonderful. Okay, so where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lakewood, New Jersey. Still live there. I live in a development called Cedarwood Hills. It's on the edge of Lakewood and Tom's River.
Okay.
If you asked me this 20 years ago that I'd be living out here, I would have laughed at you. I live across the street from the Blue Claw Stadium, and the Quick Check next to all the wedding halls. But it's a nice kahila here, and I'm here 7 years now.
Wow. Okay, so going back to your childhood, so what was your childhood like? And did you always know that you had CP, or growing up you didn't know what you were going through?
So let's go back a little bit. So right now I am almost 35 years old,
Wow. Baruch Hashem.
twin to a sister.
Okay.
Um, we were born early. We were born premature, and I guess I took the hit for the crew.
Okay. And your sister's perfectly healthy?
Physically, mentally, they like to think so, but yes, Baruch Hashem, no, she's a healthy mother. She's she's married. She has twins of her own.
Wow.
Yes, so my sister was always, Baruch Hashem, a regular, typical girl, but again,
Right.
I took the hit, and so yes, you asked me if I knew my whole life that I was, faced with this challenge. So yes, my parents, my father, this is a whole nother interview in itself. My father is a
Okay.
mechanech par excellence. He's finishing 36 years of teaching in
Wow.
Lakewood, and he was a big believer of tough love. and I
Okay.
credit my success to him.
Okay.
My entire life, I knew that yes, I was physically challenged and I was delayed in many ways. But we knew, my parents knew, I believe, from like the early age, let's say 9 months, 10 months, when my sister, my twin, was progressing and I wasn't. That was like the first red flag. Um,
Okay.
they knew. They went to the pediatrician and then they go to the neurologist. I don't know the whole that,
Right.
but again, they knew that yes, I do have like they call it a mild case of cerebral palsy.
Okay.
Never referred to it between us, between my family, between my friends. Most of my family members, probably my extended, like my cousins, my uncle,
Right.
they still probably don't know what my condition is.
Right.
Refer to it because CP is a very, very large umbrella. You
Right.
could have children like myself who got lucky, and then you could have kids who can't speak, who can't walk, who can't do anything, let alone live a normal life. So
Right.
to answer your question, yes, we knew almost from day one that we'll be faced with this.
Was it hard growing up with having a challenge and going to yeshiva also? Was it hard like that?
So it's a very, tough question to answer in a 45-minute schmooze. Um, so it definitely helped having, my father in the school that I was going to. The Cheder was a
Right.
large school, and the fact that my father was a Rebbe there, or is a Rebbe there, you know, and I was the first physically challenged child to actually go through the chinuch system there. So
Right.
I was known as Rabbi Rotberg's son, and every
Okay.
the staff knew who I was, and they were the staff themselves. I forever remember from the janitor to the building manager to the secretaries to each Rebbe, they all knew who I was, and that definitely, you know,
Right.
assisted in making it easier. And most kids were accepting and friendly, but yes, there were, um, if you want to use the word, situations of bullying, of being made
Right.
of, teased. Yeah, it wasn't so easy always growing up, but overall, I credit my success to my parents, to my family, and to my
Right.
friends. So it wasn't always easy, and I don't think to go into detail will help, but it was challenging.
Wow.
And then, once I finished eighth grade, I remember asking my father if I can go to a smaller high school.
Right.
The Cheder was a very large building. I went on, the Cheder today is in a big campus on Vassar Avenue, um,
Right.
in good old Lakewood on Ninth and Madison. And there were a lot of steps. It was an old building. It was again, but my father didn't like to, make me different. And I remember, you're throwing a lot at me. We didn't really prep for this, but
Right.
I remember I used to hold the railing like this and walk down one step at a time. And my father would walk past me in the hallway and he would give me the military steer, you know, and
Yeah.
walking with the principal and my father would just stare at me and he could still do it to today. And I know exactly what he wanted. And I just shifted and I started walking slowly down the steps like a mensch. And
Right.
principal says to my father, Rabbi Rupert, aren't you being too tough on your son, Yossi? He says, I'm being tough on him, but if I ever, thank me for being stark with him. And yeah, because he was understood my limitations, he understood my challenges, but he was very, very he was very a loving, pushing father at the same time.
Wow.
So
Wow.
he is a loving, pushing father, a bit till 120. But
I mean,
once I went to high school, I went to a smaller high school. I was
right.
open class of the yeshiva. It was just started off with 15, 16 boys, one floor, building. So yeah, high school was definitely a smaller place, but I was definitely faced with other challenges because my father wasn't there and my
Right.
other friends weren't there. Um, so ninth grade was, I mean, you're going very fast. When I was in elementary school, I had surgery in primary. I
Right.
didn't walk till
I'm
I
sure you had. I'm sure you had many surgeries.
walked till I was about 5, 6 years old.
Right.
Learned how to ride a bike until I was almost bar mitzvah.
Wow.
Um,
That's a separate conversation, but yeah.
well, that's not. I don't want that to be a highlight. So
Why not?
it's,
It's amazing that
we
that
could,
you're that you're able to bike.
we could schmooze about that, but we'll do that soon. But
Yeah.
so I had a surgery in primary, and then in fifth,
Okay.
sixth grade, and then in seventh grade. So
Wow.
then I've been um, surgery free. So
Thank you, Hashem.
yes, thank you, and Baruch Hashem. But nowadays, Baruch Hashem, I have other sources of physical therapy, let alone
Right.
I'm a husband now and father of 4 children, and we just had our 12th anniversary. So,
Wow. Thank you, Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. So yes, so elementary, so young. My childhood was not the typical, and
Right.
coming to high school was hard because I was the new guy on the block all of a sudden,
Right.
and yeah, I don't want to go back to school. I'm happy to be out of yeshiva for one reason, because now I have my own place, and
Right.
if one person hears this conversation and realizes that being a bully or teasing someone for being different than you or not what you expected of somebody,
Right.
it's evil.
It is. It's
And I
I
most
I
people,
could tell you. I could tell you, Yossi, that friend to friend, I was bullied in high school,
I'm
and
sure.
I hated high school. I left high school early because I was bullied. I didn't like it, and I'm sure you were the same thing to
I
a to a to a to a certain degree.
Yeah, I don't want to be the Nebuch case. I don't want to people
Right.
to, feel bad for me. But just because I tell my son all the time, just because someone's not as good at sports as you are, he's very energetic and he makes up
Right.
what I couldn't do. Just because someone's not as good at football or baseball doesn't mean you can make a nasty comment. So
Right.
um, we're we're going off track here, but I went to high school, and then to say each child, and I don't know what your message, what you want me to. I don't even
Right.
know why I'm zeicha to be on your podcast, but
Because you're a very yes, you're very unique. You have something called, I don't know. I'm saying I don't know most people that have CP that are able to, first of all, have kid, meaning have a Baruch Hashem, thank Hashem, have a family and have kids, a wife, family, kids, and also do major bike rides and go on bike for high for I don't know, close to 10 years already.
my
And
8th year best session.
wow,
So
but
to tell you why, I because everybody is faced with their own challenges, and
right,
when people say, "Oh, you're so inspirational," and blah blah blah, I don't want to hear that, because everybody's
right,
each person in their own way. Just because my challenge is more visible than somebody else's, it doesn't. I don't want it to take away, and I don't want it to make less of somebody else's.
right,
So yeah, so going through school, I went through again. So let's build up. So
right,
I went to base high school, and then I went to base medrash. Um, and I went to also Rabbi Newman's yeshiva was a very caring and very accepting environment.
right,
In my days, 15 years ago, when I went to Rabbi Newman's yeshiva, it was a joke in yeshiva, like, "Oh, so your father died? Aha, so you got accepted.
right,
So you're handicapped, so you got accepted." So your parents are not together anymore, so you got to accept it. Oh, you don't know how to read, so you got to accept it. Rabbi Newman taught us how to, take our strengths and
Right.
take a
Wow.
so and then once I went, I stayed by Rabbi Newman for many years, and then I ended up getting married while I was there. I
Wow.
worked part time, and then here I am.
Wow.
So,
So
uh,
how did how did how did you where's your wife from?
so my wife is from Lakewood. Not originally, she's from Yardley, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So, and then my mother-in-law became from with almost as a single mother with 3 children,
Wow.
and one of them being my wife.
Right.
Then my mother-in-law remarried, and my father-in-law, Alav Shalom, raised my wife and 2 other children, and they had 1 son together. Uh,
Wow.
so my wife is from, out of town, but they moved to Lakewood,
Okay.
and she went to Beis Yaakov, regular run-of-the-mill yeshiva.
Wow.
Maybe she
Right.
was more accepting from who I am because of her
Right.
interesting and not typical background. My mother-in-law is a very loving lady. I get along.
Right.
It's just, my dating was a little different, and
I
it's
want to get into that. How did you meet your wife, and how was it? How was the dating life when you were dating?
so I'll tell you, let's go back till when I was
Yeah.
21.
Right.
Most of the year, I never, everyone says, they see me, we mentioned Bike for Chai, but they see me the
Right.
days of Bike for Chai. Oh, you're such an inspiration, how you don't stop pushing and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say this out loud, and I'll say this for you too. They
Okay.
see us the other 362 days of the year.
Right.
They don't see that every single day is a challenge to get out of bed and face and put up a good fight for every single day.
Right.
The summers, let's say, Purim was challenging when all the yeshiva guys, all my friends would go collecting, and then we would run around. I didn't like that. I went because I felt like I had to, but I was
Right.
for. I like the Purim song on the Purim Suda because I'm musical. As you see, you have my keyboard in the background.
Yeah.
Um, I went for keyboard lessons for physical therapy. My parents were very,
Right.
they wanted me to get movement in my fingers, and then because of that, I developed uh, music and I sing. So I enjoy, the Purim Suda. You're sitting in one place,
Right.
sitting around and bringing. It was nice, but the running around part, I didn't enjoy so much. Some
Okay.
was challenging. Um, these like different, and then getting to the summer. The summer, all my friends would go on road trips and run around and go to camp. I went to camp once in ninth grade. My
Wow.
Rothschild, that's how not forced, but he decided that the first month of the summer, we'd be going to Camp Taras Chesed.
Okay.
I did not want to go, and I remember a day before camp started, Rabbi Rothschild came to my house and spoke to me and said, "Well, try." You know, so I was more of a homesick kind of boy, and I'm still
Right.
that type. I don't miss my mother and my father. I
Right.
miss the comforts of home because of the physical challenges, going to camp, being everything spread out, and the showers are still from 1800, and you're sleeping 4 guys in a room. I'm one of 4 children. I'm used to having my own room. I'm not used to having to wait on line for a shower. I just
Right.
I wasn't into all this stuff, and I don't play sports, so like, what am I supposed to do all day? So
Right.
I'm sick. I just missed my comfort zone. So Robert Rothschild coached me in and said, "Come, let's go. We'll try." So
Okay.
saying this because I think, again, he didn't prep me on what we're going to schmooze about.
Right.
Just thoughts coming to my mind. And the first few nights were disaster. Um, Taras Chesed was a camp from Chaim Epstein's hotel.
Right.
Yeshivas that came, they were all the Aleph students, all like the good yeshiva bachram. And my class were more of a Chevrolet, and we were like the bums of Lakewood. Like I remember Galipol and Rabbi Chaim Epstein and Mir and all the top of the line yeshivas. And we went, and I didn't enjoy it, so I just made a little trouble. Maybe I'll get sent home. Well,
Right.
um, after a couple days, I said this. I remember calling my parents on a payphone. Who remembers payphones?
I remember payphones. I remember
I
payphones.
remember
Yeah.
calling my parents and saying my father promised me he'd come pick me up. And my father again never lies to me. And I remember Shabbos was very nice because
Right.
Rebbe came and there was a tish and we sang again because I mentioned I enjoy singing and I enjoy
Right.
upbringing with friends. I'm very social. I don't mind schmoozing with people. And Shabbos was nice, but once Matzah Shabbos came, I wanted to go home again. Short story short, long story short, my father came to pick me up. He drove the 3 hours to pick me up, and I remember this is worth it. The night before my father came to pick me up, my Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Rothschild, sat me outside, and I still remember exactly where we were. This old-fashioned soda machine, and like the humming of like a dim light in a campground. And my
Right.
Rosh Yeshiva tells me, "Yossi, are you gonna go home feeling like a failure? Like you messed up?" I said, "A little bit. Maybe I was wishing that I could do it, but I guess I'm not ready for the challenge." He says, "You're gonna go home a champion because you didn't wanna come to camp." I was 14.
Right.
I was 14 at the time. You didn't want to come to camp, and you came for a week. And he gave me a kiss on the forehead, and he said, "Enjoy the rest of your summer." Robert
Wow.
sniffed it when I was 17 years old. He had an aneurysm, and he was gone. But he was a very, you know, there's so much I could talk about because I grew up in the old time Lakewood.
Right.
Grew up davening in BMG, the Yashan, the main building, and I grew up in a Lakewood where I said hello to my neighbors,
Right.
and it was just, where my parents lived was a small community, was this the end of Lakewood. So my Rebbe Rabbi Rothschild taught me how to be a yid. Like he was very into Musser, and he was very into like, what's your purpose on this world? And I don't know if you could see it, but there's a picture of him in the background somewhere on this Rambam shrine. But my
Right.
yeshiva, Rabbi Mordechai Newman, taught me how to learn. So,
Wow.
you know, so I went home and I remember always repeating what Rabbi Rothschild said, just because you have a challenge in life and you failed once, so let's say a person has a hard time with any taiva or any hardship, just because you fail once. There's a famous joke, a famous song, you fall down, you get back up, right? If someone falls, it's not a matter of how many times you fall, it's a matter of how many times you get up. So
Right.
let's fast forward back to the summers. I was talking about the summer.
Yeah.
The summers are hard. When I was 20 years old, I went to New Hampshire with
Okay.
my uncle's family. My parents went to Eretz Yisrael, and me and my younger brother went to New Hampshire with my uncle. And
Okay.
this really, we used to go every summer when I was
Right.
parents would go to Eretz Yisrael, and my older brother was married, my sister was married, and it was just me and my brother. We would go to my uncle, to New Hampshire. And every summer there's Mount Washington. You see these cars, this car come Mount Washington, and the joke is don't buy that car because the brakes are shot.
Right.
And every summer, the highlight of the summer of the trip was that my Uncle Yidel, and all the boys and the older girls would climb Mount Washington.
Okay.
I physically couldn't do it, so I would go spend the day in a children's amusement park with my younger.
Okay.
Honestly, got a little, I don't want to use the word, but depressed. Was not happy sitting around and klutzing around, knowing that my 9-year-old brother, when I was,
It's
well, no, let's say I was 19, so I don't know, 12, 11,
right.
hiking Mount Washington, and I'm sitting and klutzing around. So again, so even though everybody says to me and you and people who have physical challenges or mental challenges
Right.
that you're such an inspiration, there's hardships that we don't talk about.
100%.
And I don't want to focus on that because
Right.
it's not the point of our life. But anyway,
Right.
18, 19, we go to New Hampshire, and everyone does the bike from, the climb Mount Washington. When I was 20 years old, I remember we go to that summer, and I said, "I'm gonna climb Mount Washington."
Okay.
Never told you this, Yehuda. Okay,
No, you never.
and I go over to my uncle, and my uncle. This is a whole conversation. A person can only succeed with, you could have. So I'm not a rebbe. I'm not a Rashiva.
Right.
I'm a person who was working on himself. A person can only succeed based on the people that he has around his club. Like my nickname is Yoro, the Yoro Club, right? It's not
Right.
just the chevra. The people you surround yourself with. I don't want to know if they're gonna get upset. Tully Weiss, Yossi Rotber, Nasanel Gold, Moshe Gershbaum, B'chol B'nai Akihila of Am.
Yeah. The whole chevra. JJ's chevra.
The reason why we're successful is because we surround ourselves with such positive energy.
Exactly. 100%.
So my uncle, my he is somebody that I owe so much to because he's a rebbe in a yeshiva in Lakewood. He finishes
Okay.
shots almost every single year. He
Wow.
he he says Mishnayos Baal Peh. We're driving
Wow.
to New Hampshire. He's mumbling to himself. I'm like, "What are you saying, Guido?" And he's saying Tehillim Baal Peh. How many people do you know who say Tehillim Baal Peh? But then he was the one who taught me how to play pool. He was the one who has a sick fadeaway shot on basketball, and then he
Right.
was leading a whole trip climbing Mount Washington. So he was like,
Wow.
is the perfect balance. Before I got
Right.
had a Rav, he was the person that whenever I had a question on Yiddishkeit or Hashkafa, I always went to my uncle. So the night before the trip, when I was 20 years old, I went over to my uncle. I said, "Uncle Lido, do you mind if I ask you an honest question? And please give me a yes or no. Do you
Okay.
think I'm capable of climbing Mount Washington?" So he says to me, "Yossi, if you want to do it, I'll slow down and do it with you."
Wow.
I spoke to my cousin then, one of my cousins. I'm not going to mention his name. I don't know if he's going to feel comfortable. I'm
Yeah.
I said, I didn't say the last name, so I said, "Svi, can you do me a favor? Can we climb Mount Washington?" And he says, "Yep." And my younger brother, Shlomi, he says, "Don't do it. It's dangerous. Tati's going to get upset at you. Even if he's in Eretz Yisrael, he's not going to be happy." I said, "Shh, don't tell Tati." I remember I was with my cousins. We got up. I went. My cousin and I, he literally stood in front of me, and I held his waist, and we climbed. Most people did 4 hours, and for me, it took 7 hours.
Wow.
My uncle coming down higher, once it got in the clouds. My uncle came down an hour, and then he walked up the rest, with us. The reason why I'm telling
Wow.
the story is because Ein Davar I made Lifnei Ratzon.
Wow.
There's a will, there's a way is a real thing, and that
100%.
summer day changed my outlook in my entire life. Everybody has a Mount Washington in their life.
Right.
The choice to say, "Oh, I'll sit in the kids' amusement park on a bench and take it easy," or I'll face the challenge, find my support group, find my chevra, and do it.
Right.
Oh yeah, will I do it again? Will I climb Mount Washington again? Probably not, because
Right.
right. But it was a life changing moment from a silly mountain. I realized
Wow.
so much more. A person has so much more kayak in him than he really thinks he does. And mind you, I climbed in black pants and a white shirt because
Right.
it was just that's what we did. We're yeshiva light. That's what we do. There was no.
Right.
And I remember 7 hours. Every couple I saw coming down the mountain. How much longer? Another hour. You have an hour. I'm like, yeah, sure. Keep on going. And I remember I climbed Mount Washington and I cried. I think it's still today. I think I'm crazy for crying for climbing over a silly mountain, but it was a life changing moment.
Wow. Wow. That is unbelievable. But you got the will then, and now you're doing, I don't know how many miles a day you're doing. You're doing crazy mile bike rides. You're out of this world. That it's just unbelievable. But how was the dating life?
So it's something that I'm very, very grateful, and
Okay.
because I wish maybe the fact that I share this with you, it should be a space that we should all find our basharts. Um,
Main.
so I was 22 years old. Okay, so you know what? I remember. I'll tell you this. The first girl I was ever read to, yes. So Yossi does walk different. I don't even want to.
Right.
I'm extremely capable. I drive a car. I got my license at 17. Um,
Wow.
no, I'm in IT. I'm in IT now for 11 years. I have a degree in computers. Um, and my Rebbe was the small yeshiva that I left, Rabbi Newman, for a little bit. And
Right.
he comes to me, I have a shidduch for you. I'm like, Rebbe,
Okay.
Rebbe, let's call a spade a spade. What's wrong with the girl? I'm only 21. He's like,
Right.
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. Come on. What's up?
Right.
And he tells me the issue. I don't want to call out because I don't. If anyone listens, they may know.
Right.
I don't want to call out. And he says, I'm like, Rebbe, it's not gay. I'm not interested. So he says, Lo, let's go ask your father. Your father's a mechanic. Maybe he'll talk you into it. I'm like, Rebbe, why are you thinking about me? You have other buffering that are older than me. No,
Right.
it's my father's house. He knocks on the door, coming to my father's house. And my father says, I'm sorry, it's not Negeo, right?
You knew who the girl was?
No, she was not
Okay.
from around here. She wasn't local. And I asked, and basically the condition that she had,
Yeah.
she was deaf. Okay.
Okay.
Now there's two. We all know there's two reasons why a person could be deaf, either genetics,
Right.
meningitis, or some other condition that happened in childhood that caused her to lose her hearing. Fine. So
Right.
if it's not genetic, then I'm willing to listen, and we'll possibly meet. But if
Right.
it's genetic at 21 years old, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. So I asked him, I'm like, Rebbe, tell me, is it a genetic deafness or is it not? And he wouldn't
Right.
answer. So
Okay.
I got a little skeptical about it. So my father says it's not a shiloh. And
Right.
and the Rebbe says, this is also a good point to bring out. The Rebbe said, um, you going to we're going to Eretz Yisrael the next week. So my father, he says, you're close with Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So can you go ask Reb Chaim, what does he feel about the shidduch? My
Right.
line that will stick with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Only bother Reb Chaim Kanievsky with shilas. I don't have a shilah. It's not negaya.
Wow.
So he's like, I'm not even bothering the Gadol Adar because it's not negaya. I don't have a shilah. If you have a
Right.
should I do this? Should I do that? You ask a Rav, you ask a Das Torah, then they'll tell you what to do. When you know no
Right.
Shiloh, then there's no Shiloh. So then
Right.
we nixed that one. So Baruch Hashem, fast forward a year and a half. Most of my friends, Rabbi Newman is a big believer of getting the boys married off young.
Okay.
Remember some of my friends saying, "Oh yeah, we'll be there for you," when the shidduch life gets difficult and
Right.
tough, watching my friends getting married young, 20, 21. And I always used to daven and say, when is going to be my turn? And it's interesting, but I was read to 26 girls.
Wow.
What's the gematria of 26?
Okay.
What is it?
Hashem.
Yud Kei Vav Kei.
Right. Wow.
Is 26. 25 of the girls either had physical or mental issues, which weren't for me.
Right.
Nainara has a family story background. Okay. So new, but physically and mentally, Baruch Hashem, I got very, very lucky.
Right.
So Baruch Hashem, I went on regular dates. How did we meet? That's another, so I was learning in Rabbi Newman's yeshiva, and my
Yeah.
Rabbi Yisrael Jacobowitz, one of the Shalom Eshivs in yeshiva, calls my father and tells me, wait, so hold on. So at a point,
Yeah.
my shidduch life, I remember telling my parents, "Ta, please don't tell me when a resume comes in. Mommy, please don't tell me. Just tell me if I have a date.
Right. Okay.
This one, because what's wrong with like it got a little depressing, and I got a little down, and I was ready to plan a trip. For the summer, I was gonna hoping to go on Rapace Crohn's trip. To somewhere in Europe, run away and go on a trip for 2 weeks. But then, Baruch Hashem, my summer turned out to be my wedding. So
Wow.
I remember my parents called me up and tell me, my parents sat me down and said, "Yossi, you're going out on a date on Wednesday." This was on Sunday.
Okay.
Who's the date? Um, my wife's, Kleeman.
Right.
It's like Kleeman for Lakewood. I'm like, okay, what's wrong with her?
Right.
My father says nothing. I'm like, what are you crazy? Like, what? So I said, okay, who read the shidduch? So he said, my Rabbi Sroel Jacobowitz and Rabbi Newman's yeshiva. My wife um, used to babysit by him, and he knew her from the block. He was her neighbor, and I learned in yeshiva. So my Rabbi put us two together and said, you know,
Try it.
go meet. And this was on a Sunday, my parents told me, and I started bugging out. Like, oh my gosh, I finally have a date. I didn't know what to do with myself. And my twin sister, her husband, I'm very close.
Okay.
I call him up and I say, Nasi, I'm going out on Wednesday. It's Sunday. Why are we waiting so long? I'm like, he's like, oh, because that's what Tati said. I remember my brother-in-law calling me up an hour later. You're going out on Tuesday. I'm like, what? He's like, I spoke to Tati. Why wait? Like the kid's nervous. Like I'm going out on my.
Right.
I never did anything. So what did I do? I'm a very, IT people are very. We have to have like a plan of what we're gonna do, how we're gonna fix it.
Right.
So for the physically challenged people, dating like a mensch was also more difficult. I'm not the Hasidic background. I'm not doing sit-ins, and I don't want to
Right.
deprive myself of going out and meeting someone like a mensch. So, and I also was very nervous about going dating because I'm from Lakewood. I'm going to meet someone from Brooklyn, and I'm going to have to drive to Brooklyn, and even that is hard. And then I'm going to have to drive to Manhattan, and I couldn't do all this. Hashem sent me someone from Lakewood.
Right.
So I remember this was on a Sunday, the shidduch was read. So Monday, I Googled it and I found some local small hotel. I drove there by myself the day before the date. And I remember,
Okay.
checking it to make sure it's a little, it's appropriate. And I told the bartender, I'm coming tomorrow with, here's $20. And when I want you to bring the drinks to the table, because, when I'm walking, it's going to be a little,
Awkward.
can you please bring the drinks to the table? And that's
Right.
what happened. I went out on my first date on a Tuesday, and fast forward 3 weeks, I was engaged. I
Oh,
didn't,
Baruch Hashem.
didn't date like the typical. I didn't go to Manhattan. I didn't do any rah-rah dates. I went local. I did things my way. I did things not my way. I don't want to things that worked for me. Um,
Right.
went to a local park. We sat there like an old Bubby and Zadie and just schmoozed. And I remember when I was gonna propose, I was gonna propose in one place and it got dark. Or when I no, I went to propose at a local park and the whole Lakewood was there. So I said, so we went to another park and then Shkia, sunset came. So they threw us out. So I went back to the first park and it was dark already. I ended up proposing in my car, sitting in my car. No fancy gazebos, no will you marry me sign, just, plain and simple,
Wow.
who just takes
It,
Sam sent the perfect shidduch, someone who doesn't need the fanfare, doesn't need
right.
the outside,
No,
and
I know your wife from the couple times I see her on Bike V'chai. She hates the fanfare that that she gets all because of who Yossi is, because of who you are. You get all the fanfare. She hates it.
so to give her credit, that's exactly what I need, because my life is that, yes, we are physically challenged, and yes, we do have a different life, But I always said, once a local newspaper interviewed me and wrote a whole article. I always say JJ, our friend, is not
JJ Isaac.
right.
Yeah.
He's not an amputee.
Right.
He's a guy who's a father, a husband, a chef, and he happens to have one leg.
Right.
Or Yehuda Blonder, right? You're Yehuda who happens to have a medical condition.
Right.
Yehuda Gelman, who happens to he's Yehuda, he's a husband, he has a wife,
Right.
has children, and he has a job, and he happens to have a medical condition. Or
Right.
you interviewed David Eggert in the past. David Eggert and I were next door neighbors. I took my first steps in his house, right? David
Okay.
happens to be a chaplain, right? David
Right.
David Gabe first, a father, a husband, and he happens to be a singer.
Right.
So that's my motto in life, is that your challenge can never define you. Because
Right.
once it does, you're toast.
Right. 100%.
It does
I,
get
I didn't
hard. And
I didn't mean the fanfare because Yossi, you have a medical condition. What I meant was that your wife doesn't like the fanfare because the amount of money that you fundraise for Bike for Chai and Chai Lifeline over the years, uh, it's it's giving you the fanfare of, okay, how did Yossi Rotberg fundraise over, I don't know, $30,000 or more? That was the fanfare.
Kainara, this is my 8th year. It's very difficult, the fundraising, because Kainara, everybody's fundraising for something else.
Yeah.
We're all fundraising for I'm sure amazing causes, but Kainara, over the last 7 years, I raised over $200,000. But
Holy smokes.
the way I do it is because the way I live life.
Right.
I push and I push and I ask everybody. I try not to be a pain in the neck fundraiser. I just start from the beginning. I start in January when everybody is still sleeping and it's snowing outside and most guys are not even thinking about biking. On the way home from the registration party, I'm busy texting and emailing that I just signed
Wow.
up year, whatever year it was, and I go back. You're gonna laugh. Right here. Here's my spreadsheet of my previous donations right here on my desk. And
Wow.
the way I fundraise is because till you ask, it's like you got a definite no.
Right.
In life, till you try something, till I tried to climb Mount Washington, it's definitely I can't.
Right.
Till I went out on my first date, I never thought I would. Till I got married,
Right.
till I have children, Kainar. So fundraising is the same stubborn personality that I have, is that I'm using it to a benefit, that I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to, and believe me, days get challenging. Okay.
100%.
My kids are Kanainara, Lebedik, and, not the most, they're good kids, but they make, a little trouble in school, and I'm getting the
I
phone
hear.
calls and getting the, assignments that have to get signed by Tati and Mommy. So it does get a little hard, but I push and I fundraise very hard. And again, the reason why my wife doesn't like it is because she treats me like a regular human being. So like,
Right.
what's so cool about it? He's just doing what he's supposed to do,
Right.
and I don't have to go into detail of what my wife's background is, but like on
No.
my first date, my wife asked me straight out why I agreed to date her, based on, I'm from birth. Again, I mentioned I grew up in Lakewood, Downing, and BMG,
Right.
and my father's a rebbe in a local cheder for almost 40 years, and now I'm going with, you know a daughter of a single mother, about
Right.
tshuva, and like what's the shaykhs. And I remember answering straight up, I don't care about your history, I don't care what happened. From here on in, what do you want to be? And that's it.
Right.
And and she was very happy with the answer, again, because she agreed to date me a second time.
Right.
And and I was nervous because the first thing someone sees is the outside, the chitzonius, right?
Right.
When 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 I walk into a room, so, oh, there's the guy who walks funny, you know?
Right.
So I was nervous, like I'm gonna meet somebody and like, oh, the guy walks funny, forget about it. I'm not interested. Right? But
Right.
that my wife gave me a second date, that means that her outlook in life is not the typical either because she's willing to look past me, past
Right.
so so come to my second date, I remember asking her the same question because my Rebbe always told us that when you go out on a date, you're supposed to, you know, listen to what the girl's actually talking about.
Right.
On the second date, bring up a conversation that you had on the first one, right? So I remember
Right.
saying, okay, so last time you asked me why I agreed to date you. Now I'm going to ask you the same question. Why do you agree to date me? She's like, what are you talking?
Right.
I said, well, a guy like this. So she says, I'm dating Yossi Rotberg. I'm not dating the limp.
Wow.
So right then and there, I knew this is a different,
Different mold.
we're
Different.
on a different frequency. So
Right.
I was very, 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 very lucky. So my
Right.
wife doesn't treat me like anybody else different. She understands that things are challenging, and she does
Right.
work a little harder, more than a little harder than most mothers and wives. But I think we complement each other.
You definitely complement each other. But how did you get involved with Bike for Chai?
We could schmooze for hours, Yehuda. So again,
Just a quick snippet.
I mentioned that on a previous episode of the unique perspective, you interviewed David Eggert.
Right.
Now it goes by captain, chaplain, whatever fancy terminology.
Chaplain David Egger. Yeah.
So chaplain David Eggert's parents and my
Okay.
parents, we shared a wall. We were next door neighbors in a complex in Lakewood,
Okay.
and I could name you all, I think, 12 children are of the Eggert family by name and order of age. That's
Wow.
how close we are. Labe Eggert, you remember Labe, who I ride
He
with?
just had his birthday was on Friday.
Right. So Labe is a younger brother. David's older than me. David happens to be a twin also. Um,
Right.
David, at a time, there was David, Yitzi, and Labe and Shalom. There were four Eggert brothers that riding for Bike for Chai.
Okay.
So as we all know, David Eggert was the founder of Bike for Chai. He was one
Right.
kook who had this idea that he had to get his bike to
He
camp.
was he was a crazy
Nuts,
dude back then. Yeah.
nuts. He still is nuts.
I know,
But you need, but you need a nutcase like him to have a positive idea to get my
correct.
camp. And I remember him coming to my. We were next door neighbors, but they moved away to another development. But we remained close forever. And I remember him coming to my father and asking for a sponsorship for his first bike ride. And
Right.
I don't remember the number that I gave him, but I gave
Yeah.
him a
Okay.
sponsorship for his first ride. And
Yeah.
then, it picked up. So how did I get involved? I always thought it was nice, when someone uses their talent or skill to help somebody else.
Right.
Like I volunteered for Makimi for a period of time. I volunteered for Masameach for a period of time because I had a car when I was young and I played keyboard. So, you know,
Right.
I received. There was no Bikur Chalam when we were kids. There was no Lifeline when we were kids or just starting. So like I'm so happy to give back to the community when I see a kid suffering or you know it's more of a selfish thing than
Right.
the patient feel better. So so I always was what I thought Bike Chai is crazy. Like why should we why should we sponsor money for Bike Chai because the guy wants to ride his bike. But
Right.
I still remember, but you turn everything, into a Davaruchni, into a good thing, you know.
Hmm.
So I remember, watching Back for Chai and all the YouTube videos and I remember sitting exactly where I was. I was sitting on the stoop outside my apartment with my wife, and I said, I wish I could do this in 2015. And she's like, so go do it. See, that's she didn't. So what's this big deal?
Right.
You're no different than anybody else. So go get a bike and go.
Right.
So I remember I'm like, really? She says, yeah. I'm like, it takes a lot of training and time. She says, no, it's good physical therapy for you. It's great. Go do it. So I remember
Okay.
going to work, and I remember talking to a client, Yoshua Brodsky. Joe
Okay.
Brodsky is Yoel Margulies' brother-in-law.
Okay.
So I remember asking him if he thinks I could do bike for Chai.
Okay.
Until today, he tells me it was the biggest lie he ever said. He
What
said
did he say?
that yes. Yeah. He's like, "Well, I don't want to make you feel bad and say no." So I said, "Yeah, because when you want something done, you tell Yossi he can't."
Right.
Now, Washington, I'll do it. Tell me I can't do 20 push-ups, I'll do it. Do you remember the
Right. The
plank?
planks. The
Yeah.
planks.
So I for Hanukkah, the first night Hanukkah, I did one plank, and by the end of Hanukkah, I was doing 8-minute plank. Are you crazy? I thought I was nuts, but that's how I make a not
Wow.
make challenge myself. My biggest competitor is myself. You know,
Right.
so, so I remember asking Josh Brodsky if I could do bike for Chai, and he says, "Nah, I think so." So I remember, going with him to a local bike shop in October. We went
Wow.
because October they're it's a dead season. So I got my first bike on a good deal, and it actually was a woman's bike because the bar is lower
Right.
down, so my knee has clearance. And the first year I did bike for Chai was in 2016, and I actually did my first day was with David Egger.
Wow.
And
This was before the Night Riders team came to be, right?
well, JJ was always is and will always be an icon
Right.
of bike for Chai.
Right.
I know
Right.
his life changed with his work, and I know he's not so vocal anymore, but he was an icon. He was the
No,
only he
I
was
100%, but it wasn't a full-fledged team
no,
when
no, I had nobody.
in
I
2016.
so I ride, I wish I had my bike in the back so I can show you, but I ride a bike from far. It looks like a regular bike,
Right.
two-wheeler, it's standing up. It's built for me, but in the beginning, I didn't have that. I had a
Right.
regular bike. I didn't have any crew. I didn't have any Chaim Bernhack, no PK, no Tully Weiss, no
No
Mats,
one. Right.
nothing. And David Egger rode with me, and we did I don't know 20 miles the first day, and
Wow.
I called it
O-
quits. And the
Okay.
second day, I remember waking up crying. I'm a very emotional person, and I said to my wife, "I can't do this. I'm done. I'm sore like a beast. I'm not doing it. I can't." And she says to me, "This is you trained so hard. You can't. You can't." Yeah. I got out of there. I got out, and I didn't want to. David Egger disappeared, and he's so I call my riding with, and that's how I met Lave.
Right.
I know Lave Eggert before he was born, but I haven't seen him in years.
Okay.
Whatever. I grew up in the Eggert family. What? I knew him. I knew him since he was a baby, and I haven't seen him
Right.
in years. And he's like, "Hi, I'm Lave." I'm like, "Great. I haven't seen you in 20 years." He's like, "Let's ride together." And we ended up doing 30 miles on day 2. He pushed
Wow.
me beyond words, and that was my first year. The second year, I rode with Josh Brodsky, the guy
Wow.
who told me the biggest lie. He's done bike for Chai so many times, and he said slowing down and riding with Yossi it changes the perspective. It makes it a
Right.
unique perspective of bike for Chai.
Right.
Most people
100%.
are I'm part of Team Lakewood for fundraising, right?
Right.
Lakewood are a bunch of heavy hitter bike riders. They can bike 25 miles an hour. I'm average
Right.
12. So do I bike with them? No. Do I fundraise with them?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I fundraise by myself, and I'm part of a community of heavy hitter fundraisers, Baruch Hashem.
Right.
But do I ride with them? No. So they cannot ask them to ride with me. They will never ride with me.
They will never ride with you.
It's too not because they're schmaltzy, maybe a little bit, but it's too slow. It's very
Right.
it's very hard for them. So The second year I had Josh Brodsky, he said it slowed him down and he really enjoyed it, watching somebody work harder and I don't remember. Don't ask me. It's been so long. I don't remember how many miles I did the second year. But then
How many miles did he do the second year?
I don't remember. I remember the
So
third. The
I
third.
remember last year. I
Hold on.
didn't bike last.
Right. So the third year I met Matas Glatzer.
Right.
Fourth year I met Tully Weiss, and and then I met David, and then Chaim Bernhack joined because I worked with Chaim,
Right.
and my boss never let us both take off, you know. So he always trained with me. He's the biggest tzaddik in the world because he's an athlete and he slows tomorrow. I'm busy texting with him now that we're gonna go on a bike ride tomorrow. But
Wow.
he never joined me because he couldn't take off from work also. But then
Right.
almost 3 years ago I left that company where I was working, and now Chaim was able to join. So
Right.
4 years ago Chaim Bernheck joined. And again, you were about to say last year we did something monumental.
What was last year?
So last year was 2022.
Yeah.
So since COVID, they turned it into
A
a
1 day event.
event. And last year they brought back the 2-day event, right?
It was semi 2 day.
Right. So the first day was like a circle ride. You ride, 50 miles and you come back to the same hotel.
Right.
And I said, what do I need to do that for?
Right.
The day was you ride from the hotel to the camp, right?
Right.
I said, I want to do that. I want to start by point A, get to point B, and that will be, I don't care if it's 25 miles, I don't care if it's 10 miles. Completing a ride is more important for me than going in a circle and coming back to date.
Right.
So we rode for like 5-6 miles on the first day, and my current boss, who I work, the company that I work for,
Right.
does bike for Chai. So we went out with him. We got some pictures, and it was nice just hanging out with my boss, on a bike.
Right.
And then we came back, and then the second day, which
I
was
think you did. I think you did a big, massive ride the second day, and I'll tell you, and I'll be really honest with you. I was in the car with PK last year, and you right in the beginning, you had a little bit of an accident,
yeah.
and
So we left.
and and we were nervous wrecks. Like, okay, Yossi's not going to be able to bike. Also, because your wife was not with you, she was at the first. She was either still at
Still
like
sleeping because we left an hour before everybody else. We didn't leave
right.
with
So
we didn't leave with
so
the full
she was
countdown.
still back at the hotel. She didn't know what the heck was going on with you. You fell. But
I
for sure,
more than fell. So we left 6:45 in the morning. It was still cold. I remember wearing long pants, and
yeah,
it was freezing. And at mile 3, I'm not going to go into the details, but I think it was a lack of planning on everybody's
right.
end, and I sort of got into a little bit of an accident. And yeah, so mile
So
mile 3, I crashed. It took a little bit of time, but we got back
right,
up. First thing I asked Chaim was, "How's my bike?" Everyone thought I was
right,
like, "Why are you worrying about your bike?" I'm like, "Because I worked so hard to get here. I cannot stop at mile 3." So we got back up. Our original plan was to complete the 85 miles. There were 3 routes on Bike for Chai last year: 65,
right,
5, and 100. And I knew 100 was too much because of the
right.
and 65, I don't want to, I want to, go for the middle. I wanted to finish the 85. And because of the accident, I think we
You,
were a little late and I was shaken up and I
you,
didn't want to, I didn't want to continue.
right.
Scared. My helmet, I have it still. um,
Thank God, Baruch Hashem.
I
Thank you,
have it
Hashem.
right, I have it right here. I didn't realize how banged up it was. And, we put it back on and I finished the entire 65-mile ride.
Yeah, that was monumental. I was in the car the whole time with PK and Matis Glatzer. Shout out. Y- y- You you're an amazing person, Matis,
My
and
my whole team is
your whole team.
amazing. Because
But really, it's a whole Bike for High Night Rider team that is out of this world. Amazing people.
we're all different, unique people in the ways of Yiddishkeit. Even you put
Right,
and you we all have, and Tully and David and Chaim and Matis to name a few, and then you have Scott. You have
right.
you have you have one Litvak, one Chassid, one modern guy, one I don't know how you have. That's the beautiful challenge
That's
of the
that's the
Network group.
most amazing part of it. But yeah, 65 miles. That was a monumental. What are you planning on doing this year? How many miles are you planning on doing this year?
So I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question because again, the fundraising world changed.
Right.
Kanai becomes a fundraiser for their kids' school, and everybody they're moving to a new community, so they need to help build a shul. And
Yossi, drop the news, drop the news on the show, drop the news on the show.
that I'm retiring, I
Yeah.
I can't do that because it's my source of physical therapy. So
Okay.
um, I did contemplate a few times, like I'm done. My oldest Kanai is 10. Then I have a
Oh,
10-year-old boy. Then I have a 9-year-old daughter. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter. A 3-year-old son. Sorry. I have
yeah.
most people who do bike for chai. And again, I don't want this. Like I said, my disability doesn't define me.
Right,
I don't want me to be known as a cyclist. I'm Yossi,
right,
husband who works and has friends who happens to ride his bike when he has time.
right,
So last year we were very goal oriented about finishing the 85 or completing the run
right,
from hotel to Camp Simcha. This
right,
first of all, my life has been very busy with the children and
eh,
yes, I do have time, and my wife's gonna get upset when I say that my life is busier. It's not really because my wife knows and respects me and knows that I need to train.
right,
But my team in Lakewood, who I train with, their life changed. They
right,
have children, their job responsibilities, and I don't think it's not safe for me to train by myself. So I train inside the house. I ride inside the house by myself, but I haven't gone much outdoors this season because my crew, changed. So
right,
how much am I going to do this year? I don't know. I really don't. I really don't. And my whole outlook this year changed. My whole outlook this year is I've done Bike for Chai Kanai so many times and I've raised so much money and my Kayak Kanai is there. And again with the fundraising, it's difficult. This year I'm a month before the ride, I'm barely scratching $15,000. I know it sounds a lot to you. It does. It is. It is a lot.
it's
But
it definitely is a lot, and I'll be really honest. I only have a crazy amount is because I got one crazy donation from one person,
you're right. But I work at it.
but
I work at it.
and that person I didn't even send the link to. I I I literally didn't send the link to the guy. He out of the blue he just sent a crazy donation for me, but it's very hard fundraising, and I I've been saying for last year I was gonna bike last year. I said last year that last year was gonna be my last year,
Oh, you say that every year. Yeah,
but
I still
this
recall. Let's not talk about the first year you did Bike for Chai. I was scared for your life, man.
this year is my actual final year. My goal is to do as many miles as I'm able to do, and then pick pick my bike up and hang it up as a retired cyclist because I don't have the time anymore. I I I haven't trained this year at all.
Right.
It's very hard. I don't train. I'm gonna hang it up. I'm gonna hang up my jerseys. I'm gonna hang up my bike.
Oh, so
I,
I'm gonna disagree with you. Maybe hang up some jerseys. You know, you don't. My camera's not facing the right way, but I have the whole wall is bike for Chai paraphernalia. And Baruch Hashem, this past year, I was brought to Greece in November to represent another organization that helps, Israeli amputees, and I went to Greece with my bike. That was a dream. So I have
let's talk about that for a minute.
right. So I have
Because
a wall. So first of all, you can hang up your jerseys, you can hang up your pictures, but never hang up your bike because
why?
forget bike for Chai. Bike for Chai is a beautiful, way
Right.
of getting people to exercise. But
I don't mean hanging up my bike for good. I don't mean it like that. I mean just putting my bike for high
right. So
stuff
so you asked me how
stuff.
right. So you asked me how many miles I'm gonna do this year. I don't
Yeah,
know because I said I wanted to say most people who do bike for Chai are either young
right.
or
Middle aged.
or middle aged, where their children don't need that much assistance or supervision, so they have more
Right,
flexibility. People with my life, in my stage of 35, kind of with a family, with a young family, is a lot to juggle. You know,
I
I work
and
all
I'll be
day, and then on Sunday, I'm Baruch Hashem, the guy just WhatsApp me back that we're going 8:30 sharp in the morning. I'll be done by 10. So
right,
great, I'll still have the whole day. But this we're pushing in a ride. Usually, if he was more flexible, we'd ride till 12, 1 o'clock, and then by the time I
right,
go home, it's 2 o'clock, and by the time I get out of the shower, it's 3 o'clock, and I'm tired and I'm hungry, and then there goes my Sunday.
right. So
So yes, I do plan on doing as much as I can. The fundraising, it's not as hot this year. Last year I raised $40,000. The
are you
year
gonna at least get to 18
I hope so, based on
projections?
my history, because I'm currently at 15. Um,
Okay,
there's one big donation that I didn't get yet, or two or three that I didn't get yet. I should hit 20,000 beds to show,
wow,
and that's my average. The first year I could look it up right now, but it doesn't matter. But
right,
Kanai Nahara, my mother always told me, if you take 200,000 single $1 bills and put them out on your dining table, you'll realize how much money you actually raise for a beautiful organization. And I remember this is
right,
another message I wanted to say, that I remember the first year I came to Bike for Chai and I cried
mm,
my brains off. And I remember saying, Hashem, thank you, I'm wearing sunglasses because then they don't see that I'm crying. And the next year I said, I'm not going to cry. And the third year I said, I'm not going to cry. Every year I cried. You know why? Because I could have been one of those kids on the other side of the barrier
right,
cheering on the riders. And this way I'm on the other side. It's a simple
right,
barrier. But again, my Mount Washington taught me something about life, and my bike taught me about life. Never hang up your bike,
r-
because the bike, the bike makes you a physical able-bodied person, and
right,
never give up that ability that we have. So the fact that Hashem made me a little different and I have the kayak to inspire people, I think it's silly that they're getting inspired by me. But
right,
that I have that capability means I wanted to stop in 2019. Okay, I got into an accident then also. I ended up in the hospital with a heart situation in
wow,
2019. I thought I was done, and my Rav told me I can't stop.
right,
He says you turn the davar gashmi into a davar ruchni. You turn something
wow,
earthly into a heavenly thing. You can't stop. More people are going to be upset at you for stopping for then continuing.
wow. So I was gonna say the last couple of years, I never really worked, but Baruch Hashem, now I work. I don't have the time to train. I really don't. I'm working every single day. So so I don't know. I don't. My plan is to go up to Bike Chai, bring my bike,
And
do as many miles as I'm able to do with Nisano Gold
and then hang
and
out with PK.
the Chevra, and then hang out in the car with PK the rest of the day.
Bus
That's
Yossi.
my
It's okay, good.
What?
And bust Yossi's chops.
Yeah, and listen to all the jokes on all the dirty jokes that we get.
Nah, nah, nah. It's the chizuk that people always say that that I'm giving chizuk to them for doing bike for chai. It's not true. It's really I get mechuzuk. I get the gasoline in my tank to continue going forward. The fact that people support me and the fact that they look up to me gives me the chizuk to go forward. And that now we're gonna bounce to my November trip. Yeah.
Yeah, so how did that how did how did that come to be, and how was the experience with the next ride?
So I work for a company called Apex Global,
Okay.
ran by Hetzy Stern, Nathan Stern. Um,
I actually know Hetty Stern very well.
so
Okay.
it's Yaimon Velayla day and night from my old job to my new job. Basically, the Bike for Chais, helps kids with Yana Machla and other diseases. This organization
Right.
doesn't interfere. It's a total different. They help Israelis with who need who need prosthetics and
Right.
they have a ride and it started off in Eretz Yisrael and based and it was like a week long event. It's very different than Bike for Chai. Bike for Chai is a 1-2 day event,
Right.
local, and the fundraising is much less. But this event was like a week long pampering, and it's like like a literally a 10-star event, and it was
Wow.
way beyond my league. No, I'm not. I cannot take off a week. I have children.
Right.
Fundraise again. I cannot do. No, I can't.
Okay.
And because of COVID, Eretz Yisrael was locked down a lot longer than everybody else. So
Right.
we started going to different countries. They went to Dubai. I don't know if you
Right.
followed it a little bit, but
I do.
they went to
Yeah.
Dubai. They went to Morocco, and last year they went to Greece.
Okay.
So there's a guy in Lakewood who's very involved in the next ride. By his name is Stromayer Berkowitz of
Okay.
Berkowitz, the electrician, the big electrician in Lakewood, Berkowitz.
Okay.
So he is always trying to recruit me to come and telling me it's a different vibe and it's more you're meeting with the amputees and and it's a whole week long and you go on trips and I'm like it's very nice but not for me. I'm not going.
Right.
And last year in September, my boss, Hetty Stern, co-hosted a parlor meeting at Yisrael Mayor Berkowitz's home in Lakewood.
Okay.
So, and A.B. Rottenberg was there, and Revi Schwabel, and Benny Friedman, and that's the vibe of music that I.
Right.
So my boss texted me saying that I should come just to chill,
Okay.
and not even no, it wasn't my boss. It was Yisrael Mayor Berkowitz, the host.
Okay.
The host says, "Come chill." Don't even bring your checkbook. Just come and have a good time.
Okay.
Come to the parlor meeting. I'm sitting there schmoozing with my friends, listening to A.B. Rottenberg, and I see my boss, in the corner. And I walk over to him and I say, "Hello, just to be a mensch, shalom aleichem."
Right.
I said, "How are you?" He says, "Shalom aleichem, thanks for coming." And he says, "Go and enjoy." And then the guy who it all happened by chance. I mean, everything is from Hashem, but you know, um, the guy talking to Hetty Stern says, "Yossi, when are you joining us at the next ride?" I said, "I'm out. I cannot fundraise it for another event. I don't have my night riders. I don't.
Right.
I'm going to a foreign country and going to ride with nobody. I can't do that. It's not safe. And I don't have a babysitter.
Right.
I can't take off." And I looked at my boss and I winked and I said, "I can't take off for a week."
Okay.
So he looks at me, Nathan Stern, Hetty Stern, and
Yeah.
he says, "You want to come?" I said, Again, I would love to, but I can't." He says, "For the fundraising, I can help you with. For the bike riding, who said you need a ride? Right? Who said you need a ride? With a
Yeah.
babysitter, I can't help you with. But the job, I'm the boss.
Right.
I give you 24 hours to find the babysitter."
Wow.
I
Hetty, Hetty, if you're listening to this, thank you Hetty Stern for letting Yossi Rotber go to Greece for a
He
week.
wasn't letting me go. You'll hear
For pushing Yossi Rotber to go to Greece.
No, I didn't go. Hetty Stern brought my wife and I to,
Wow.
okay? So I went running home. I remember my muscles were shaking, and I come home, and everyone's like, "Where you?" When I was leaving the parlor meeting, everyone's like, "You just came." I'm like, "I got a job. I got a work to do. I got to fundraise a babysitter." Right? So I come running home. I knock on the door and I tell my wife, "You want to go to Greece?" She's like, "Yeah, what's going on?" I'm like, "We got to find a babysitter." And long story
And
short,
we have 24 hours.
right. And then I called Nasano Gold's brother, Jack. And I'm like,
Yeah,
"I should come." And I'm like, "I don't know about." He joined the next ride this past year.
right.
I can't bike. He's like, "Yossi, shut up. Let's go let's figure out logistics, and let's get you there, and we'll figure it out."
Okay.
So, um, so like, just again, how people are looking for ways to support me in my
Right.
mission on this world, and that's such a source of chizuk. Again, who you hang out with, and who's your friend, and who's your chevra. So, Nathan Stern did not have to do that. He did.
Right.
I called my mom, my father, and I said, "My father is an Alta Litvak. He learned in the Mir, Baruch Chaim Shmulevitz." And I'm like, I asked him Rishus. I'm like, "Should I go to Greece? Like, what random country in the world? Why?" He's like, "Your boss is offering you a trip. You go."
Right.
And
100%.
long story short, my in-laws moved into the house and watched the kids for a week, and we
Wow.
had a blast. Not only did my boss take us to Greece, he hired a car to come pick me up. So a nice black Suburban shows up at the house, fully tint, takes all my suitcases, put my bikes in the car, drives me to Nathan Stern's house. We I was treated like
Gold.
like a millionaire for a week. Okay,
Wow.
so again, not no one had to. You succeed based on the people that you're around. If you're
Right.
negative people, then you're going to be a negative person. If you're going to be around giving people, like my boss Nathan Stern, my wife, the night riders, if this is one message I could pass out to your listeners, just hang out with good people, and
Exactly.
then you'll be successful. You know,
Wow.
um, we went to Greece, and
Did,
I had a time of my life. I rode my bike
right.
all of 1 hour with
I was
it.
just going to ask you, did you end up biking in Greece?
I biked for an hour. It was stunning. It was
Right.
gorgeous. It was like it was a month before Hanukkah. I didn't have to fundraise a thing. My
Right.
boss made a whole video
That video was amazing, by the way. That
to do that, a promotional video, and he sent it out to
uh,
his clients. We raised $100,000 in a month.
wow.
know, he never does this. He's a very sneeze and low key.
He's very low
Low
key
key.
person. By the way, his family, his parents, his entire family. I know the Stearns. They're
Very,
very low key
yeah.
people.
They joined us for Shabbos, and they were like, they treated me like their grandson. Like, we were sitting at our own table by the Shabbos meal, and I remember Hetzy's parents, his mother, comes over to me and says, "Yossi, come sit with us." Like, I was one of them.
She's a very sweet
I was
lady.
one
She's
of
a
them
very
for the
sweet
week,
lady.
and then we come home. Where we got I'm on the plane coming home, and I get a text message from Mrs. Stern. "What do you want from Glotbite for on the way home?"
Wow.
See, like,
Mrs. Stern,
that
uh,
Patsy's
Mrs.
wife.
Stern Senior or
No,
Mrs.
Stern's wife texts me. The driver's,
Wow.
"What's up? What do you want to eat?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm fine." She's like, "I didn't ask you if you're hungry. What do you?"
What do you want to eat?
And I
I
come
know you're hungry. What do you want to eat?
and I come to the car, and there's two schnitzel sandwiches with two drinks, one for me and my wife. Again, you didn't have to do this, but
Right.
I'm with such caring people.
It's
It makes
first.
life so much easier to go through the challenges that you face with, knowing that you have a support group behind you. My parents, my siblings, my friends, my workmates. You know, everybody's looking to make $100,000, $200,000 a year, but the menuchas nefesh of working in a positive work environment changes your entire family. I work in a normal place when I'm not up to coming into the office. I can work from home. Nobody asks me nothing, and like
Right.
I will forever be indebted for what Nathan and Hetzi and his wife did. They didn't have to do it, but
No.
but that makes people like my we at the beginning of a conversation we schmoozed about my uncle. You know
Right.
those good people. It's just simple. Hang out with good people.
Uh, Some people are just made from different molds. That's
No, it's people who chose to be good.
right. No, I'm saying, but they were made from different molds, and they were made good people.
Yeah, and that's why I succeeded because
Right.
it's still again I said a daily challenge, but the fact that I have good parents, loving in-laws, siblings, friends, that's you got it. It's a toolkit. You're in IT. The what's the foldable mini screwdriver set, right?
Yeah. The I fix it.
Right, the iFixit, right? If you could get a
Yeah.
knockoff one from eBay, or you could get
Right.
the iFixit one for $75,
Right.
what would you rather?
I'd rather get the $75 one because I know it's much better.
So, would you rather hang out with guys who are meh, or you
Nah,
rather
for
hang out
sure,
with the
100%,
iFixit camera?
100%.
They both do the same job. They both could fix a laptop. They both could fix a computer, but one is a pleasant experience and one is not. So,
Right.
hang out with good people.
Yeah. So just, I want to end off with a couple of questions. The most influential person in your life that you would want to sit down for an hour,
Living or dead?
both.
Oh man, you got me speechless here. On a personal level or like Yiddishkeit?
It doesn't matter. Personal Yiddishkeit, it doesn't matter.
My grandmother,
Okay.
my mother's mother, my mother's parents. My mother's father's still alive. He was Rabbi Yaakov Rotberg from the Olomenu fame.
Okay.
Okay, he ran the Olomenu for close to 50 years. His wife, my bubby, was.
Yeah.
I chose on a non-living person because Baruch Hashem, my wife again, my father, my mother, my siblings, all the typical Baruch Hashem
Right.
still here at my fingertips. I could call
Right.
them right now at 1:45 in the morning and have the conversation of a lifetime. But like my grandmother passed away 5 years ago, and I would pay anything to be back with her. I still have her on my speed dial on my phone. I used to call her every single day just to schmooze. She was very, very inspirational. I mean, in what's the word? She was
Inspiring.
influential. She suffered. She wasn't a well person, but she was always happy. And I remember calling her on the first bike for Chai that I ever did the night before bike for Chai. She was crying. She was just so proud, and she was someone who was one of my real fan. She was a real fan of mine. And
Wow.
whenever I was down, whenever I was had a kind of question with my kids, Bobby just had the right answer, and I would pay anything to see her again.
Wow. It's gonna sound stupid, but the best advice that you were given and the worst advice.
Okay, so let's focus on the negative first.
Okay.
When I was going through surgeries, I remember, I'm not going to say who it was, said, Baruch Hashem, you have legs. Be happy you have legs.
Okay.
I have, he said, I know someone who doesn't have a leg. You have a leg. So, JJ, I'm going to call you out. Your prosthetic sometimes works better than my real leg.
Right.
You know, you don't tell that to a seventh grader, to a 12-year-old who's going through hip surgery, who's in pain, who's lacking the social life of his friends. Be happy you have legs. Give him
Right.
give him a hug. A few years ago, I was able to meet a young girl who has CP totally by accident. another fundraiser. Her father sends me a text message asking for a donation for his special needs daughter's basketball team. I didn't even know
Right.
who he was. I didn't have his number, and I'm like, I don't know who you are, but I think I could give you a little, like we should meet. And I ended up come meeting them, and I asked this the first time I met them. I saw the father, and I said, I know this is going to sound awkward, but can I give your daughter a hug? Because that's what they need. They need love,
Right.
and they need to realize that people are going to be there for them. Don't say anything. It's like when you're going to a shiva house. Just keep your mouth shut. When some
Right.
when someone's suffering, they don't need to hear anything. They just want to see that you're there for them.
Wow.
And the best advice, that's a very hard thing to answer, but I'll tell you a slogan that I took upon myself. I was in
Right.
I was in Marshalls, and I saw a little, like one of these things that you hang on the wall. Anything is possible if you have the courage to make it happen.
Wow.
So I have that hanging in my kitchen because when things get tough, if you want to get something done, you will. Because
Right.
fearless means you're crazy. You know, fearless to go into battle or go into Iraq and Iran and not be afraid of the terrorists, then you're nuts.
Right.
Courageous is knowing the fear, having the fear, and doing it anyway.
Wow.
So I was afraid to go into the shidduch world. I was afraid to ride my bike on bike for chai, especially after my accidents. I was afraid to wake up and be a father of 4 children. I am afraid of waking up and being a husband and a father almost every single day,
Right.
but get up and do it anyway.
Wow. 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 Yossi, had we have enough time, we would have gone back about the entire Lakewood, but we don't have time anymore. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and I have to go for a bike ride tomorrow. So
So, but wow, this was a real treat. Thank you so much for letting me interview you. You, I know you, I know you don't like when people say it, but you are really a true inspiration to all of us, whether it's bike for chai, work, or just being a family, a father, a wife, husband, father. You are a true inspiration,
I
and just
appreciate
keep up the great work that
because
you do, and just keep it up.
thank you, because at this point in my life, I'm not a big interview person. I don't like the spotlight. I'm a very social person, but I don't like solos, and I don't like being like
And
this.
thank you for letting me.
I don't like it, but at this point in my life, if one person could get chizuk, if one parent of one special needs, child sees this or hears this and says, if Yossi can do it, I'll push another day, then it was all Kedai.
Right. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night, and
Have a good
go biking in the morning.
Yes, sir. Yehuda, thank you again for having me, and it was a pleasure to finally, you know,
Sit down and do this.
yes. And I wish you much atzlacha, and your unique perspective should become the worldly perspective.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you. Yes.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye bye.